Ladies and gentlemen,
Businesses have life cycles just like humans, and what they need at each stage will be different.
Yeah, it's a setup to make you get up and get into it. Allow me to influence your financial affluence.
It's a setup
To make you get up and get into it. Allow me to influence your financial affluence.
the six-figure setup.
But nothing in this world that I like more than checks. Money. All I really wanna see is the money.
Go get the money, go get the money.
My check.
The six-figure setup.
What's going on, guys? It's your host, Tiffany P. Gillespie. So excited to be back with you all for another episode of the Six Figure Setup podcast. I hope that you're having an amazing day. Today is a really special day because I have another special guest with me. You're going to find out more about our relationship and how we know each other and how we're connected in one moment. But before we get into that, I just wanted to remind you all to make sure that you register for the next cohort of the Dream Builder Plus program. You all can click the link that is connected to this video or the audio in the show notes. You can also visit our website at t3diversitysolutions.com, and you can go ahead and register for that cohort. Once the cohort is full, we will not be accepting any more participants in the January cohort of the Dream Builder Plus program. You can also, if you're ready to get started now and you don't want to wait, you can go ahead and apply for the six-figure setup program. That's the one-on-one program that we offer to you all, where we walk you through everything that you need assistance with in your business. And the enrollment for that is on an ongoing basis until we fill up our slots for clients with that as well. So I just wanted to give you that quick reminder before I bring on my guest. So without further ado, let me bring her in. Hey, Marquita.
Hi, Tiff.
I'm so excited to have my friend, my big sister, my business partner. Like, we've been a lot of things to each other throughout the years. Marquita Eshun, so excited to have her on with me. I'm going to tell you all a little bit about her. I could give my own, version of the story and my own bio and what I know about her, but I'll give you all some facts. And the reason why this is important is because we're going to talk about today ownership. We're going to talk about partnership. We're going to be looking at systems and how that's important for business. And we're also going to be talking about planning for the new year. But when it comes to ownership and partnership, Marquita is like the queen of owning some stuff, and also has some really amazing partnerships in business and in life. So Marquita graduated from Westchester University with a dual degree in accounting and finance. She does all of the financial stuff, helps me out a lot with the finances, helps my family out with the finances, friends, like I just refer everybody to her. So she is the accounting and finance expert. A few years after that, she went on to obtain her master's in business administration from Rosemont College. Marquita excelled very quickly and very early in her career in public accounting at PricewaterhouseCoopers. And if you are in the finance world, or really if you kind of know anything about the professional world, then you know that PricewaterhouseCoopers is like one of the premier firms that you could be connected to. So she worked in the private sector pursuing mergers and acquisitions for large multinational manufacturing companies and did so well in that sector. One of the things that's important to note about her is that she first became interested in real estate investing while working at PwC, preparing tax returns for their high net worth clients. One of the things that she noticed was that all of them either built or maintained their wealth by investing in real estate. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today as well. Like I said, Marquita has a wealth of knowledge. If she shared everything, this podcast episode would be like 2 or 3 hours long. So we will keep it cute, get to the point, and cover as much as we possibly can. From that point on, she aligned herself with mentors who were very successful in the real estate game and set out to learn as much as she could about the industry. She now has her real estate license. She works with individuals who want to have their own real estate license or get into real estate development and investing. And we'll talk about that at the end of the broadcast. So if that's you, then you need to stick around to the end of this episode. Currently to date, she has developed over $10 million worth of real estate and currently holds a multi-million-dollar portfolio, which includes commercial property, short and long-term rentals. So basically, this episode probably needs to be called the 7-figure setup episode because this is out here doing well, okay? You know, I'm trying to teach y'all how to get to 6 figures. Marquita's about to put y'all on with game on how you get to that 7-figure game, okay? How you reach that level. So thank you so much, Marquita. Did I miss anything?
You didn't. Tiffany, that was an amazing introduction. You got it all. You got it all.
Thank you. Thank you. So again, like I said, we'll talk throughout our episode about, you know, how we met and how we're connected and all of that. We got some funny stories, some, you know, interesting things that have happened throughout the years, but I want to kick it off with talking about the importance of ownership. So we just talked about your real estate portfolio, but that doesn't even include the businesses that you own and the other things that you have ownership stake in. So you, in your bio and in the introduction that I just gave, you really kind of had your eyes open through working at PwC. How have your corporate experiences helped you to understand the importance of ownership?
That's a great question, Tiffany. And I'll start by just talking about how I've always, you know, in my mind, like I want to say right around high school, when you start to think about college and the future, I always just knew like, okay, I would go into corporate America. It would probably have something to do with like finance or international business. I kind of knew where I wanted to like settle in and around, but that was just sort of my thing. And that's kind of how you are when you, in my family, so they're foreign. So their big thing is education, get a really, really, really good job. And so that's how I've always been. In school, I just excelled. And in my plan that I thought I would sort of pan out to do, I would go into corporate America and I would just excel and I would just do very well there. And it's funny because I did that. I went right into corporate America, you know, went to college for finance and accounting, straight into corporate America. But I think what started to change my what opened my eyes to the idea of ownership was the segment in the industry that I went into. And that is specific because at PwC or at PricewaterhouseCoopers, as Tiffany mentioned in the bio, I was excited to be working there. When you come in as a new hire, they kind of put you on this track where it's sort of a fast track where they want to put you in more of a leadership role, especially for their diversity and inclusion programs. So being an African-American female, they put me in that sort of track where I didn't settle in one industry. For the first year, I had different stints with different industries. And that means I had a stint in their taxation department, in their auditing department, in their mergers and acquisitions department. So I had a chance to sort of work in each and every segment. And I think that is what opened my eyes to the idea of ownership, because at the end of that, year, you got to pick where you wanted to settle in at. I picked tax because I wanted to be in private equity with their high net worth clients, because the little stint that I had when I worked on them, they allowed me to do they allowed me to do tax returns. That was sort of like the basic where you came in at. None of the planning with their larger clients, but I did get to do their tax returns. And what I saw on every single client that I worked on, it was maybe about 4 for that first year. And then when I went into that industry, obviously it was the whole gamut of their client list. Every single person has Schedule E's. And as me coming in, I'm like, wow, that means that they have rental properties. Wow, why is everybody that I'm working on have Schedule E's, and why do they all have rental properties? And so then I started to get just a little bit more interested in, I'm noticing a trend in strategy for their high net worth clients. So they would have other things going on in their tax return, but the trend that I saw they all either owned real estate or owned an equity share in the business. And when I mean they owned an equity share in the business, that means they were a partner. So they either had a Schedule E for rental properties or a Schedule K1 for partnerships. And I mean, that was across the board. So I'm like, okay, I want to work in this department, not only because I like it, but because I want to learn what they're doing as I'm working. And eventually I want a new hire to be working on my high net worth tax return.
I know that's right. And listen, you know, sis, I love that you had a clear vision and plan and idea about what you knew your future would be. And we could definitely speak to the importance of what your parents instilled in you and, you know, cultural things and all of that. But I love that you really set your sights and your intention on where you wanted to go, what you wanted to see in your career, and then being able to execute that. I think that is absolutely amazing. And another thing that I think is really unique is that your ownership and your career is mixed a lot of times. And I love bringing on guests like you who don't just have like income or a salary coming from one area, right? I recently did an interview with another good friend of mine who works in finance, and she has a very successful corporate career along with the businesses that she owns as well. And this is important, I think, to the ownership discussion in general, but also to the business discussion, that everyone thinks that in order to be a business owner, you have to be a full-time entrepreneur. In order to be a business owner, that is just this one-track way to do it, when ownership looks so different. So can you talk about, like, so again, you don't just own real estate, but about the business ownership piece. What sparked your interest in that? And how have you been able to balance having a corporate career and being a business owner?
So all good questions, Tiffany. These are like, we getting deep into the mix early. But I would say the importance, and I know we're going to get into discussing this in a little bit more detail later, as you mentioned, the way that I'm able to balance being in corporate America, because I still am in corporate America. And it's a little bit easier now that I'm 100% remote. And that was due to the pandemic and just kind of us reorganizing the way that our team operated. But I'm in corporate America in more of a consulting role. And I always told myself that, you know, if it was beneficial to me, I would always leave a foot in somehow, some way, because not only do I get obviously you get a benefit of having some sort of security as you're going into your entrepreneurial endeavors. And I know for me and myself, in the beginning, my salary was financing my business, if that made sense. So it sort of took away a little bit of the anxiety for any of my new ventures. And it took it away because I kind of had the security, and to say that, you know, if I'm going all in with this business and I'm doing this, at least I know at minimum my bills will be maintained, because my salary will enable me to do that and focus everything else on my business. Or it would allow me to generate certain types of funding, because I would sort of have a history of a salary of working at a specific place. So it would allow, you know, certain banks, while my business was fairly new, it would allow me to be a guarantor on a lot of the loans, because they would see that she would still be able to take care of it. So that was one of the reasons why I kind of kept a foot into corporate America, because it provided that level of security and took away some of the angst of being an entrepreneur, because I wanted to go on so many new ventures. And I knew that in order to do that, I would need capital, I would need some sort of security, and I would need just a little bit, you know, me personally, I would need to not be as anxious so that I could focus more on what I needed to do for the business. And then on the second side, but what I will say is you have to think about the way that whatever you're doing, if you are still working a 9-to-5 or you're in corporate America, you're doing it so that it is not hindering you from furthering your entrepreneurial endeavor. So that is why I used to be 9 to 5, and I don't say it's a real 9 to 5. In accounting, it's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So it's 12-hour days. And so that's what it was. But as I started to get more and more serious about my entrepreneurial endeavors, and I started to see the successes, and I started to see that it required more from me, then I had to figure out a plan to be able to scale back from corporate America. And so I went into consulting. So now it's more of not a 9 to 5, but it's, hey, you got these projects for the year and we'll check in when we check in. So that is what worked for me, because it still provided that security, but now it gave me enough time to be able to really focus on, where I wanted to take my business.
Yeah.
In addition, working in corporate America or anywhere, oftentimes these businesses have great systems already put into place.
Mm-hmm.
And I have learned a lot, and I have leveraged a lot from what I've learned, what we've used, how we've managed processes while in corporate America. And I've used a lot of that in my own business. Been able to sort of leverage what I learned from them in a smaller scale, but in my own business. So that's one of the main reasons why I stay in corporate America, or I would call it keeping a foot in. And it's also why and how I've been able to sort of manage that in my business, is because of systems that I put in place, which I know you want to get into more detail later, but that's probably the number one reason I'm able to be in more places than one, or do as much as I do, is literal systems.
Yeah. We are going to talk about that when we come back from the commercial break. So what I want you all, what I hope people took away from that, and thank you so much for sharing about, why, because there has to be a why and how you balance both, and why you keep both as a part of your life. So to anyone who is listening to this episode and you have a, quote unquote 9 to 5 or a more traditional job or a corporate career, whatever you want to call it, don't despise that. One of my favorite scriptures is from Zechariah 4, I believe it's 4:13, but it says to not despise small beginnings. And I remember when I was working in corporate America, I would recite that scripture over and almost every day. I had it at my desk. And it reminded me, one, to be grateful that I had a career that allowed me the flexibility and freedom to be able to build my business. Was I tired a lot? Absolutely. Was I working long days? Absolutely. But I did not despise those small beginnings, those things that seem small, or the things that you may not necessarily want to do, or what a lot of time, modern society, for whatever reason, weirdly, looks down on people that have normal jobs, as if we don't need doctors, lawyers, accountants, and all of that. That's a whole nother story and topic for another time, because it's crazy to me. But if you are listening to this and you have a 9 to 5 or a more traditional job, don't despise that. Be grateful for what it does allow you. And one of the things, even in business, it is hard to create when you are in a space where you are financially desperate. So having a job that allows you to cover your bills, I feel like, and like you said, that you can take more risk. I know that if my bills are covered, I'm free to, kind of take some risk with the extra, or, try some things. And if it doesn't work, my entire life is not falling apart. When you become a full-time entrepreneur, everything rises and falls on the success of the ideas that you put out there. If I release a program at this stage in my journey, if I release a program and nobody signs up for it, and that's how I was planning to pay my bills for the next month, we're going to have a problem. That's going to be a big problem. So I just want people to be grateful for where they are, and to really just listen to what Marquita said in terms of how she is balancing, and then also what she's taken. That was another thing. And I had to have a mindset shift. I didn't feel like this when I first knew that I was going to be a business owner. I became one of those people that was I mean, quite honestly, like kind of arrogant, like prideful, like, like, why am I here? I don't want to be here. Like, that kind of attitude, until I was humbled and shifted my perspective. But I learned so much from working at a larger organization. Ultimately, you are working in what you're trying to build to. You are working in, like, you want to have thousands of employees.
Absolutely.
He has offices all across the country, around the world, right? So to be able to, instead of despising your job, pay attention to what they're doing. Pay attention to how they're building. Pay attention to the essential people, because those same things are going to be needed in your business.
You have a front row seat to it. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yep. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, guys. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about systems, delegation, team building. And then we're going to talk about our team, me and Marquita, and how we became a team and how it's been going. Y'all, we got some tea and some stories. All right. So make sure you all stick around. We'll be right back after the commercial break.
Gone are the days of expensive weekend conferences masquerading as business coaching opportunities. T3 Diversity Solutions is a management consulting firm that helps women of color business owners start, grow, and scale their companies through personalized consulting, access, and support. Their focus on strategic planning and growth is what your business needs to attain and sustain six-figure success. Visit T3DiversitySolutions.com to schedule your 360 business analysis.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Six Figure Setup Podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Gillespie, and I am live with Miss Marquita Eshun. So excited to have her on. At the end of the last segment, we left off talking about systems and how you can learn about ownership and the systems you should have in business from your corporate career. So I want to dig a little bit more into that before we get into our hot tea, our funny stories and stuff like that. Let's talk, Marquita, a little bit about having the right team and being able to delegate to them, because I think it's great if you have a team, but if you don't know how to delegate to them, you might as well not have a team. So let me start with just asking you, who are some of the essential people, or like the important people, that a business owner would need to have on their team?
Okay, that's a good question. I think I'm saying that about all the questions that you ask, but so I would say some of the essential, in a general sense, when you get into specific types of businesses, then that list could get very, very detailed. And I can provide some examples of that for different industries, because I do have businesses in different types of industries. But in general, I feel like for an entrepreneur, you always, if you aren't personally very, and what's the word I want to use? If you aren't personally, I want to say financially, and because I don't want to say the wrong word, but if you aren't personally someone who really, really understands the financial inner workings of business, and if you aren't somebody who understands, and I mean thoroughly understands. You don't want to be somebody that is just like, oh, I kind of understand a little bit. I get what they're doing. You want to be somebody that thoroughly understands, or you want to have somebody in your team that does. And when I say thoroughly understands, that's thoroughly understands business finances. And that's like an accountant, a CPA. And I mean thoroughly understanding books, ledgers, financial statements. And then on the other side, you want that same person, or if not, another person that thoroughly understands is sort of the end result of that. And that is more on the compliance side or the tax side, because it's one thing to have a good grasp of just how to manage your books. You got a good system down, you use QuickBooks, you got your invoicing down, you got your pays, your bills, all of that kind of works, payroll. But then once all that's done, and at the end of the year, you're stuck now. You're like, okay, now what do I do? You need somebody that could basically understand how to take all of that, put it in a nice, pretty bow, and give it to Uncle Sam. Give it to him and present it in a way that is compliant, okay? And also that is not detrimental to your business. So they need to thoroughly understand the laws, the incentives for certain business owners in your specific industry. And they need to understand planning, because they need to be able to see what happened that year and what you could do better, or what you could do different, or what's coming down a pipeline that you could probably take advantage of. So that, I would say, are the number one and the number two you should have as you're starting your business, because that could be in the way of you obtaining certain funding or financing, because you need to be sort of all compliant and legit on paper. So at the start of your business, it's easier to do it while you're starting, as opposed to 3 years later, now you're in business and now you're trying to grow or scale, and you're going to banks and they're like, okay, let me see your last 2 years as tax returns and your financial statements from those years. And you're like, okay, let me go find an accountant that can do that for 3 years back. And a good accountant is going to get their money's worth. So I say those are the number one and two. If you are blessed to be thoroughly financially understanding of that, then I say there you go. But I would have somebody on my team, and they don't have to be somebody on payroll. They can come around. I mean, somebody that you are only going to really have your CPA around during tax season, but you may have them on a retainer because you want some planning capabilities. And I think that's also very important in business. You want a CPA, or you want a tax accountant that is not just there to do what you give them. Here's my financial statement. They're like, oh, okay, let me put it in the computer. You want somebody that's going to see it and say, well, damn, Tiffany, I see that your gross income for this year was $100,000, and we're forecasting you're going to be double that next year. You may have to start making some estimated payments, or maybe we might think about you doing some more research and development, because you can take that as a credit and that still is going to benefit your business. And now you won't have to pay tax on all that income. So you want a planner as well. So those are two really, really important business.
Yeah. I love that. You need someone who can help you plan. And I will say that Marquita has been that was one of the biggest things I think I learned from Marquita early on in our relationship. So just to give you guys like a little bit of background, and then I'll finish that point, is that Marquita and I met, what year is it? I want to say maybe like 2014, 15.
Yeah. I want to say 14.
Yeah, like 2014, we met through one of our mutual friends, Yolanda Young is her last name now. I was about to say Kills Walker. That's what I was used to calling her for so many years. So we met through Yolanda. And we were a part of Business Babes, which is an organization that's definitely still around. I'm going to have Yolanda on a future episode, so you guys make sure you check that out. But we were both a part of that organization, and just like building out, like the team and resources and all of that. From there, just maintaining a friendship. And then she started doing my taxes for my business. And that's when I think Marquita was my first tax person for my business. I think so.
It was.
Yeah, because I didn't know nothing. I didn't know a single thing. And Marquita put me on. I'll never forget that first time we had a meeting. I'm sitting there like, I am poor. This is whack. Like, I don't know what to do. I owe all these people taxes. And literally from that time forward, though, I learned, and it's a system.
That's right.
It's a system to this thing. So we did that, and then in 2019, so this was many years after we met, I think I reached out to actually offer like my business's services. So one of the services that we offer on a very, very exclusive and very limited basis is operations management. So my company will like run the behind the scenes of another company. And we do that, privately. Clients are almost like hand selected for that. So I reached out to Marquita and I was just like, hey, do you need like help with any of your businesses? And we got to talking about the salon, and then conversations continued from there. Next thing you know, we're in partnership. So instead of it being like she was a client of my business, I brought my skill set to the business that she had, and we worked together to get that business reopened. We're going to come back to that point in a second. The reason why it was important to highlight that is
flowers for that one. I have to give you your flowers to that point. So don't let me forget, because that was the reason I'm like, oh no, she needs to be a partner.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah. So
an angel.
So we had, all that to say though, that she was my very first accountant and taught me about the financial game, really, because that's what it is. At that point, by the time we got to 2019, I owned a property. I had a rental unit. So my life was different. My finances were different. And we were talking about, I was entering into, I want to say our partnership was the first partnership that I had. If there was another one, I don't remember, and forgive me to any of my business partners who might have been a business partner before that. But the salon was my first, not just partnership, because I'll say I had other idea partnerships, like Genesis, another one of our mutual friends. We had done a lot of work together, building communities, but this was the first one where we was we'll be paying taxes on this bad boy, right? So I remember sitting in the salon with Marquita, and we're talking about the business of the salon, but we also begin to talk about just investing, expanding my mindset. And literally I tell people all the time, the year 2019 completely changed the way that I did everything in business. Everything. Nothing about my life is the same as it was prior to 2019. So I just wanted to share all of those things to say that when Marquita is telling you all that you need to have a financial planner, someone who takes the time to understand your goals, who you can be honest with about your money, right? Because every year ain't a good year. So you need somebody that you can be honest with, someone who can guide you and direct you. That's really, really important. And I have basic, I can balance books, right? I do my own balancing of my books. I can keep the company out of the red. Yep. Anything beyond that, I got to toss it to Marquita. I got to toss it to another accountant on the team. I got to toss it to somebody else. So don't be afraid to get that help that you need in business. So let's go ahead and talk about this business partnership, friend. Okay. So like I told y'all, all right, around about the end of 2019, we sit down, we have a conversation. We say, you know what? It makes sense to enter into business together. And I was nervous, if I can be honest with you guys. I was really nervous because Marquita had been in business much longer, than me, particularly in the real estate field. And I'm I don't know what I have to offer to the business. Girl, I got a little bit of money, but I ain't got So I remember feeling like that. And that's, we could probably have a whole podcast episode about imposter syndrome and just, feeling confident and knowing what you bring to the table. But I remember, again, us just having conversation about it. And we started mapping it out and planning it. And we would literally meet in the salon in the dead of winter with these little heaters,
no heat.
keeping us warm, no heat in the salon. And we would be in there though, for hours on end, just strategizing and planning and coming up with systems and, me understanding her vision, because again, this was a partnership. The salon had been in existence at that point for 5 or 6 years.
Yes,
it had been closed. Yeah, since 2014. So it had been closed for some time. So even though Marquita had owned, the salon and even the building and stuff like that, a lot had shifted in her life as well in terms of the ownership pieces that a lot had shifted. Okay. So again, the salon wasn't open. I'm coming in. I have this new idea. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I need to go back. The way that, let me backtrack because there's an important part of the story. A part of us entering into business. So I had actually reached out to Marquita because I wanted her help on negotiating a deal for me to be a partner.
Right.
You remember that?
Yes. You got to add that piece in.
Yes. I forgot about that literally until just now. So I had an opportunity in Upper Darby to go into partnership with a person, I won't give gender, but with a person who already owned a salon, who already owned a barbershop and hair salon. I might be giving it away at this point because Upper Darby ain't that big, but who owned a beauty salon. And the hair salon portion of it was not operating. It was literally just like dead space. So I'm like, oh, I can come in and bring this back to life. So I bring Marquita in to negotiate like the deal and the finances and, you know, what I'm going to invest, what I'm bringing to the table. That ended up not working out, but let me tell you that God does all things well, because when it started kind of like falling through the cracks and I was telling Marquita, like, you know, this ain't really sitting well with my spirit anymore. Marquita was like, well, why don't you like do this with my salon? Like, you know what I'm saying? Because she had seen at that point, she had watched me like pitch myself and talk about my services and my skill set. So that's how we got into that point. So am I missing anything so far about how we got to the point of like planning?
Because I was sitting and I'm thinking, and as I'm going through this process with you, more on the financial side, to say like, well, Tiffany, this, and we were looking at contracts and stuff like that. And we both kind of knew that at a certain point, this probably wasn't the best deal for you. But all alongside, outside of being somebody you had hired to sort of help you negotiate, I'm looking at it on the outside as a business owner myself, like, well, damn, I would love if, and I sat on it for a couple of days because I didn't want to seem like I was working with you with an ulterior motive personally. So I'm like, I don't want her to think that I didn't, that I didn't approve of this deal because I wanted her to come to the salon with me. So I'm like, let me sit on it. And at that time, you know, who's now my fiance, but at the time he was my boyfriend. He's like, you keep talking about her, how smart she is and how much he was like, what? I mean, if that is somebody you've had history with before, I doubt she would feel that way. Why don't you just say it? Just bring it up. Just talk about it. Just mention it. I'm like, you know what? Okay. And yeah, and you were like, oh, that's that. I love that. Let's talk. And I think that same week we were like going to the salon.
Oh yeah, we got like, because again, we had already really kind of been doing the work, like because we had been talking, and this is what I mean about, you know, God doing all things well. And I have a lot of these moments in my life now where I can go back and see like the little seeds that are planted that lead to, you know, like bigger things. Even, you know, us meeting, like that happened 5 years prior, us being able to maintain a personal and professional relationship. That was years before bringing her in. And we were working even on other projects. 2020 came in and wrecked a whole bunch of stuff, but we were working on a lot of projects. And I'm like, listen, I have a lot of moving pieces. I need to know what deals are going, you know, that makes sense. And it wasn't like, to me, it was the thing that made sense. I was like, why didn't we do this in the first place? Like, why did we spend the past few months like trying to figure out this deal with this other person when we could just be working together? So we did that. So we ended up, you know, figuring out the partnership. We start developing these systems. I literally was just looking at my file cabinet the other day and found like, you know, all of like our paperwork and stuff like that, and all the forms that were created. Like we did everything. It took a lot of time, you know, really digging into the systems of the business. So from there, we eventually got to the point that the salon, you know, was open. So now we're in 2020, y'all. And if you're keeping up with the story, you already know probably how this is about to go. So we get into January 2020. We start our hiring process. We're getting people left and right. Like, you know, they're applying like our applications. I mean, I'm doing phone interviews with people every day, sometimes multiple in a day. Media. Yes. Everything. It was so many different pieces that were moving at the same time. So we finally set an open date for like, was it like mid-February? It was like mid-February.
Yeah, I think it was mid-February.
So we set the open date, and we have our orientation with our staff. We were fully staffed live.
Yep. Girl.
So then we open up. We're doing, you know, pretty good. We are trying to, you know, let the neighborhood know that we're back. But, you know, our women that are working, they're seeing clients, you know.
Yeah, they're coming in. We're seeing some profit and
Yep. So it was going pretty good. It was going pretty good for our first month. And one day, So one day, I gotta tell this story because this ain't even the pandemic story. So one day, maybe like a couple weeks after we opened, one of the stylists calls and it's like, "Hey, the lights keep going out at the salon."
Oh, right.
I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, like the lights keep getting dim," and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm on my way!" Right? So I literally raced from like 30 minutes away. I get to the salon. We got customers in the salon, so we can't afford the lights to be going out. I call Marquita, like, call the power company. Like, did we pay our bill? Like, what's going on? Child, I pull up to the salon, and when I tell y'all, I still have this video on my phone. I pulled up, it looked like a war zone. Like the people, say again.
It was insane.
Yeah, it was absolutely insane. Like the city, our lovely, wonderful city of Philadelphia, had people out there working on the street. They had they're working on water. They're working on electric. They're working on repaving the street, sewer system. The whole street. I mean, you can't even park near the salon. Whole street dug up. Mind you, we were there like a day or two before and everything was
right.
Oh my gosh. So we had to close for the day. That was that. We ended up, we don't even have time to get into all the details of that, but we ended up having to come out of pocket, do what we needed to do to get the salon like reopened because we don't even open for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, so we're coming out of pocket.
Yeah,
it's just not salon pocket because we ain't really make it yet.
Talk about that. Pocket.
Right.
So we come out of pocket, we do what we need to do, and we just gonna leave it at that, and we get our salon reopened. 2 weeks later. 2 weeks later. The stay-at-home order goes into effect.
We had just got our inspection approved. Remember the guy was in there with us? We all hyped and excited.
Yep. 2 weeks later, the stay-at-home order went into effect for the pandemic. Well, y'all, we were supposed to be home for 2 weeks. All right. Everybody knows how long we were home. We were only open for a month before we had to close our salon. And then we couldn't, I think salons got approved to reopen maybe like 6 months later. So maybe like the end of the summer or something like that.
And that was when I do remember we were doing stuff. We were thinking about like a fall kind of re opening. Yeah.
Third time reopening. Yeah. So we like third time's the charm. We're going to get it reopened. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be great. And as everybody still knows to this day, we couldn't find staff. I mean, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to come to work.
Nobody wanted to come back. And I think a big part of that was kind of what we're experiencing now with the big giant migration back into the office. Nobody wants to go back. And that kind of was the same thing I feel like with the salon, a big part of, because we were fully staffed.
Yes.
I mean, we had 8 girls, we had a junior stylist, we had a salon coordinator. I mean, we were fully staffed. Nobody wanted to come back because I think they had gotten under, or what they did during the pandemic, I guess, to continue to generate income. They felt they could still do that and not have to sort of cut into that profit by the expense of paying the salon to work there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that was a big part of it. It was like, well, I see this kind of works like this, so I don't see an incentive to come back. Like, what's my incentive to come back? Because we was trying to get them.
We were. Like, I went back to all the old staff, like, hey, y'all, we reopening. I mean, people didn't even respond. I'm like, what? Did we do something wrong?
Right. I love that. Like we just shut them down. No, our bubbles were just as burst.
Yeah, for sure. So we ended up switching to a different business model. And again, that's a whole other episode for another time, just in terms of like pivoting. And it took us, from the time that they said that we could reopen, it took us like six months or more to finally get, because again, when you switch to a new model, we had to rebuild everything in terms of systems and like plans. So we did that. We had to take the time to do that. We ended up having to work with it became a whole thing. It became a whole thing. But the salon is open and in operation. Y'all more than welcome to go get your hair done there, get service there. We have a great person in there who's working with a wonderful team. But we had to pivot, just like a lot of other businesses. So we just wanted to share that story with y'all. We're going to pull a couple lessons out. We got to take a commercial break. I wish we could keep going. When we come back, we're going to wrap up. We're going to talk a little bit more about integrity. You all heard Marquita mention that was a concern of hers when approaching, with the idea of the business partnership. So we'll talk about integrity in business. We'll also talk about some things to look for in a business partner. And then we're going to wrap up today's episode with Marquita sharing her 6-figure secret. So you guys don't go anywhere. Please stick around. We're almost at the end. We'll be right back.
The holiday season is upon us, and SOA Fitness wants to help you enjoy your celebrations while maintaining your health and nutrition goals. SOA Fitness is an international fitness company that helps women and men achieve their fitness goals through healthy living and exercise. If you are ready to take your fitness life to the next level, check them out on Instagram today at MJ Fitness Global.
All right, guys, we are back. Welcome back to the 6-Figure Setup. I'm your host, Tiffany Gillespie, and I am live with Miss Marquita Eshun. If you've been with us the entire episode, you just heard our crazy story of opening our salon, having it shut down by the pandemic, trying to get it reopened, and all of the things that we dealt with. But there's 2 really important things that I just want to highlight and pull out from what we talked about. And we have, during the commercial break, we were talking about doing an episode specifically about our salon experience, because there's so many lessons and so many things that we can teach around that. So we'll look to do that in a future episode. But for today's episode, Marquita, you mentioned when you were telling your story and how we kind of even got to the point of talking about working together with the salon, that you wanted to make sure that it didn't look like there were any ulterior motives because we were already working on some other things. So can you talk about how important integrity and faith is, because that was literally a God thing. Like, God set us up for that, right? So can you talk about integrity and faith in business and what that's meant for you?
So for me, and it's extremely important, because I think that, for number one, faith in business is, I hold dear to my heart, because, to be perfectly honest, outside of what intrinsically I know I have to offer, what I know my skills are, I have to have strong faith, not only in myself, but my higher power, to know that they're going to guide me to do exactly what I am intended to do with this business. And, because the plan is already set. It's just me now uncovering it, and I'm discovering it. So faith is important, because every single day I have to have faith and be faithful and understand that I'm uncovering it just as I should. Every single thing that's happening in my business is supposed to happen. And if it seems like right now there's a blockage or a hindrance, my faith is telling me, no, it is not, because it is just telling me I am supposed to pivot this way. So it's not a blockage. I was just kind of going down the wrong path, and it wasn't the path that was set out for me for this specific business at this specific time. So that's important, because it helps me to not obsess over what could potentially be negative. And I see it as more of, I wasn't following the vision that was supposed to be set for my business. So although those visions are aligned, because I am the one that's sort of doing the work and providing the knowledge and the skill, the path and the plan is already set. And so if you aren't a spiritual person, or if you aren't a religious person, that faith still holds true and strong, because the faith is just belief in the business's success, and belief that whatever it seems in terms of, this is a blockage, this is negative, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I always, always, always maintain faith in understanding that this is just not the path that it should be going down. So that's very, very, very important to me. And then integrity at the same time, because integrity, it works in more ways than one. So integrity, because with business and entrepreneurship, relationships are extremely important and they're key. Your reputation and your relationship with others sometimes can make or break your business. So when you are someone who has a certain standard, where you are someone who is just possesses a certain level of integrity, others don't have to worry about even going into business with you, recommending you for others in terms of their business, because that's key too in terms of clientele. So I have a consulting company where I consult for finances, taxes, accounting, business planning. 90% of my clients are through word of mouth. It is somebody else telling somebody else. I don't advertise. Most people don't even know I have that business. I have a website, but I don't advertise because I want to keep a certain core set of clients. I don't want it to become too much. But literally, and I have 60 clients, 90% are word of mouth. And it's this person's cousin, this person's brother, this person's business partner, this person's attorney, this person's CFO. So that right there is a testament to one's integrity. Because if I'm recommending somebody to somebody, for one, somebody as pointed as an accountant who is going to be in their personal and business finances, I need to have the security that this person I'm recommending, and I'm giving them a stamp to say, you should go to her because she's really good. It also, it's a layer of sort of a layer of confidence, comfortability that person has that integrity, that level of integrity that you know that they're going to be taken care of, and there's going to be just a standard. And that's important. And that's been a driver in one of my business in terms of just the entire client base with my consulting firm. And even in real estate, the relationships I have with my contractors, the relationships that I have with my lenders and banks, the relationship I have with my real estate agents and even wholesalers. So everybody needs to understand that it works both ways, whereas though I just know that what I give out, ultimately, I will receive from others. So when they see that I have a certain standard in the way I do business and I operate, I expect the same back, because along with integrity, you got to make sure that you demand respect, or you demand the same in exchange. So in addition to being somebody that has integrity, that is open, that is honest, that is willing to share and help, and you also need to let others know, because sometimes that could be seen, which is very strange, but sometimes in certain industries that could be seen as sort of a weak point. You have to sort of demand that same level of respect and be very, very, very poignant about it. So it's a fine line you're straddling. And I am one that does not falter on that line. Like, I make it known, and I want to be very politically correct, but I make it known that when it comes to my business and who I'm dealing with, any sign of being disingenuine and having sort of a lack of respect for me as a woman in business, as an entrepreneur, basically the book is closed. So those are, I guess, those are key to me. Very, very, very key. And it's something that I have to maintain daily. I work towards it. I'm very conscious about it, and I'm very, very specific about it, especially with who I work with.
Yeah, for sure. I love all of that. And I really love what you were saying in terms of like the plan already being set. Everybody that listens to this knows I'm a Jesus girl, no qualms about it. But literally, when you said that, the first thing that came to my mind was Jeremiah 29:11, where God says, I know the plans I have for you. Okay. And one of the moments that I have with God all the time is that, God, you really know what you're doing. Like, it'll be times where I'm just like looking up at nothing. Like, I just look up at the ceiling, or just like out in, to the sky. I have these great views in my home. But literally just like, man, like, you really know what you're doing. You really got this whole thing figured out. And like you said, say again.
Every detail.
Yeah, every detail. No stone left unturned, no detail left unhandled. When God is telling you to do a thing and to even take a certain path, like you were saying, if you're finding resistance in a certain way, it might be time to turn left or right. And even with that, God's word talks about that as well. Like when you are praying and you're in tune, you will know, like you will hear a voice in your ear telling you to go to the left or the right. If you want to know, if you want to be taught, if you're open, to hearing, then you'll be able to hear and say, you know what, this is the way that I'm supposed to go. So I really appreciate you sharing that and that integrity piece. And I love what you said at the end as a woman in business, particularly in the industries that you work in, which are male dominated. That's important to have that respect for sure.
Absolutely.
For sure. All right, guys, it is the time of the show that everybody waits for. I'm just going to coin this. I'm going to give it a new name. It's going to be the 7-figure secret, okay? Because y'all heard Marquita's introduction at the beginning. You know what she's working with. And this is the time in the show where I ask my guests to spill their 6-figure secrets. But for today's show, like I said, we're going to call it the 7-figure secret. So, Marquita, can you share with us, it can be one thing, because I also believe that people, should pay my guests for their knowledge. But you can share 3 different things because it's 3 different. It's 3 different parts, right? All about 6-figure revenue, 6-figure profit, 6-figure salary. So can you share one or a few things that you have personally done to attain, that 6-figure revenue, salary, profit, and to be able to maintain it? Like, how did you get there and how did you maintain it?
Okay. So is it more of a, because I kind of wrote some stuff down. So I'm going to quickly just run through the list I wrote down.
That's fine.
I'm going to really specifically talk about how I maintain it.
Okay.
But the list is more so geared to how I got there. If that
sounds good to me. So it means y'all better grab your notebooks. Let me get my pen out. I'm ready.
So the first thing I always think of, and it held true in every one of the industries that I've gone into for business, is I figured out where my expertise lied. What skills and knowledge did I possess that I could share? And it may have been to a point where I wasn't technically an expert yet, but it was something that I had a knack for, that I was passionate about, and it was something worth sharing. So I did like self-evaluations on myself. The obvious one, of course, was finance and accounting. So yeah, I had a consulting firm, but that was one of my first babies that I started in 2012 because I had a degree and I was working in it. So that was more of an innate skill that I knew I had, and I knew I was at an expert level because I had a dual degree in it. But doing these self-assessments, and I do this yearly because I'm always thinking about the next thing, I figure out where my strong points are and where my skills are and what could I share? What knowledge do I have to share? So I always put myself in a situation of like a potential customer or client. What will I be willing to invest in? And that is kind of the number one thing. That's how I hone in on what I could possibly do. Then you have to further go into that, and you have to identify where a struggle or where's the gap in the industry and what solution you could provide based on that skill you narrow down that you have a knack for. So you find out, okay, I'm really good at this. I noticed that right now, this is kind of lacking. So now you have figured out your skill, and now you see the need, and that equals, right? Those 2 main things, I wrote down some more, but those 2 main things equals your road to that 6 figures, because that is going to have, you're basically building your client base before you even really build the business, because that need is there and you have the skill set. And then that's when you determine your price point, and you start actually like really now working on like planning out how you're going to run this. And, you just remember what you put in is what you get out. I put that in there because it's important to make sure you're enthusiastic and passionate about it. So even if you have to revisit that step 1 again, because as you're building and planning out, you figure out like, revisit it before you get into deep, because that's going to continue to take you years and years and years and years and years. Because this is, our businesses are our babies. So it isn't something you start and then you drop. So those were like the top 4 things that I wrote down in terms of, that's kind of like the list to ensure that you get to the 6-figure point. And in order to maintain it, I go back to my tried and true. In order to maintain it, now there's a little middle step in there as well. I always have in the back of my mind for each one of my businesses, my ultimate vision for it, my ultimate top vision, and all the goals under that. I always think about it in terms of like a pyramid, like a real pyramid. The vision is up here at the top, and then there's all these little goals under it. And then under each little goal that's making up that vision, there's actual tasks and steps, like tangible steps that I have to take to meet that goal, tangibles to meet that one and that one. And all of those goals are going up to that main vision. I always work that out and have that at a high level in for each of my businesses. And then you have to make sure you have that plan to scale. When you start a business, you're starting at a certain point. You always have to remember, to get to the 6 figures, to get to the 7 figures, you have to scale. And scaling is growing. And that means, now you're at a certain point in your business after the first year, I need some systems. Now I need an assistant. Now I need somebody that's just going to handle my books for me so that I can continue to be out operating or generating clients. So you got to remember to scale. And then once you're doing all that, you have to remember, in order to be able to keep it, you have to always remember to be able to invest back into your business. Business finances are extremely important. And not even just saying this because I'm a finance girl. If I was, if I didn't even like numbers at all, if I couldn't stand to look at a number, I would still know I would have the best CPA on my team, but I would still know that that's important for my business. I could hate numbers and can't stand them, but that doesn't mean it isn't important. It's one of the most important things in business, because you have to be able to have a keen sense to understand basics: profit, expenses, net. Am I in the black or am I in the red? That's all you need to really know. Then you have to be able to forecast. You got to be able to say, okay, this is this year, but this is going to be next year because why? Okay, and this is going to be the 3rd year because why? Hiring somebody, I'm coming up with a new product. It's about to be COVID. Anything can change the trajectory of your business. It could be things that you can't control, like COVID. It can be things that you can control, like I got a new vendor in China, and so now I'm going to whatever. So you got to be able to forecast what's going to happen to your P&L statement, your income and your expenses, because of the changes that are going to happen into your business. And then you have to be able to budget, because with the forecast comes the budget. And then you have to be able to use that number-filled knowledge between your actuals, your forecasts, and your budgets. And you got to be able to find, and this is very important, find pockets to be able to invest back into your business, because being able to invest back into your business is going to be able to allow you to scale. So I probably ran off a lot, but those are very, very important in terms of being able to generate the 6-figure income, but being able to keep it and being able to move it to 7 figures. And so I would say not even really having to be financially savvy, but understanding that it's extremely important just to the health of your business. I need to understand what's going on. I need to hire somebody that really understands what's going on. I need to be able to plan, and I need to make sure I invest back into my business.
Yes, so good. Let me tell y'all something. My notebook page is filled. Okay, if you did not take notes on that, you need to go back, rewind the video, rewind the audio, however you're listening to this, and take those notes. And I love what you said, to take the number filled knowledge and then figure out how you're going to apply that. That literally just, I was sitting here like, I need to go back and look at my plan. Like I need to, and I love these. I think that's the point, right, of the 6-figure setup podcast, is to make us to have have experts come on to make us think like, how can I make my plan better? How can I do this better? How can I improve this? How can I improve that? And the hope is that with that improvement, your business grows and you get better and you're better managing things and all of that. So yeah. Whew, man, that's the 7-figure setup right there, right? Thank you so much.
Always
Yes.
a pleasure with you, Tiff.
Yes, thank you. So you guys, I'm gonna let Marquita go. Wherever you are, I know she can't hear you, but you should definitely be giving a round of applause to her. Thank you so much for talking about the importance of ownership, for being transparent and let me tell the story about the salon, and also just sharing your secrets, the things that you have literally used, to be successful. And like I said, if for me, it makes me want to go back and make sure that my plan is solid and see if I can apply any of the things, then everybody who's listening should be doing the same thing as well. Just go back and check and see how you can apply what you learned today. So to my friend, my big sister, my business partner, somebody who's been so much over like 7 or 8 years in my life, thank you for everything. And I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. I had a blast.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to let you go. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.
All right, guys. So that brings us to the end of our episode. We had a wonderful time with Marquita. She's somebody I've been waiting to get on the podcast. I wanted to tell that salon story, so I'm glad that we were able to do it together. And I'm sure we'll come back for a future episode because it's a lot more that we can dig into. So make sure you guys click the link. Marquita does have a real estate mentoring program. I'm going to make sure that I connect all of that to the show notes. It'll be in my bio on social media when her episode goes live. So by the time you guys are hearing this, it'll be in the bio. You can connect with her on social media. All of her contact information will be there. So make sure you all check her out, follow her, stay connected to the 6-Figure Setup podcast. And I will see you all next time. Love you to life. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Businesses have life cycles just like humans, and what they need at each stage will be different.
Yeah, it's a setup.